This is my International 2510B loader tractor. This was made in the mid 70s, somewhere between 70 and 78. I'm not exactly sure. It's a hard tractor to find any information on, but I believe it's based on the International 635 agricultural tractor. Same engine in it. It's got a six-cylinder, 60 some odd horse diesel engine in it. We've done a lot of work around here with this tractor, moving dirt, putting additions on, and putting driveways in and stuff. A few years ago I had the starter rebuilt on this. It was having issues engaging the flywheel. Well, now I'm having the problem again. So I'm going to need to pull the starter off of this and see what's going on with it. So here's the starter out of the tractor. So there wasn't a whole lot to see because it was up inside the frame there. You wouldn't have seen much other than my hands and my head. There is one small window on the side to get this bolt out, and then I just climb under the tractor and pull the other two out and pull it out. I don't have a test stand set up for this, so right now I've just got a I've got a lawnmower battery with some jumper cables on it. A little starter switch here. We'll test this out. Now the problem is it's spinning, but this gear here isn't fully engaging into the engine. So let's see what it does here on the bench. So it seems to be working okay here on the bench. So maybe it's just a little bit sticky and needs some cleaning up and some grease here. So let's just disconnect some power and take a look at it. Start by taking this power terminal off the back. This terminal supplies power to the starter motor. So when the main battery power goes here, when you turn on the starter switch, it pulls this solenoid in, which engages the starter, and it makes a contact in here, which gives power over to the main drive. So see that the starter is spinning. It's getting power out of here into the starter through the internal relay. For some reason it's not engaging this engaging the starter. You know, it started being a sporadic problem where it would only miss every now and then, and it got more and more common, so it might just be something getting dirty inside of here. So this is the linkage. This linkage engages the starter. That seems to be working rather smooth. No issues there. I don't want to cause any issues in the starter, but I'm going to take some general purpose oil here and just put a little drop on the linkages. Just to kind of, I don't want to get a bunch of oil down inside the starter there, but it is pretty dirty. So yeah, this just energizes and pulls this plunger back inside of here. It's all electric in there. And when that plunger goes back, there's a little pin down on the bottom. I don't know if you can see it. So when it energizes and this plunger pulls back, it goes down in the bottom of here and it pushes on this little button. And this little button is what makes the contact between this battery terminal and this terminal, which runs the starter. So I don't need to take that apart and clean that because we don't have any problem with the starter itself running. So it's just something sticky inside of here. We're gonna give it a good clean up in here. You see there's some corrosion and stuff on this piston. I'm going to give it just a very light polish here. Spring kind of fits on there like that. Spring's what returns it. See if there's any corrosion or anything up in here. That doesn't look as bad. I can see a little bit on one side. That's probably where the corrosion on here matched up with it. I don't know if I want to put any kind of grease or oil in here, because what's going to happen is it's going to attract the dirt and stick it in there. I hate to put it back together dry. Maybe I'll just put a real light coating of oil on it, just to help with the corrosion, and hopefully it doesn't hold too much dirt inside here to bind up the works. Okay, looking at these terminals back here, they don't appear to be too bad. We'll clean it up a little bit, just make sure everybody's got good contact. I don't see anything else that it needs to be addressed on here. Somebody's been in here working before. Cammed out screws. Wonder if that's from the last guy. So this is marked as a Delco Remy starter. Really didn't see too much wrong on it. We'll just make sure it runs again here. Negative, positive. Vibrating on the bench a little bit, that's where you're getting that noise from. I'll go put it back on the tractor. See if it was just a quick fix that easy. So here we are, kind of down under the belly of the beast. There's where the starter goes back on there. That ring gear looks pretty good on the flywheel there, so there's no issues with that. I'm going to clean up the mounting face there for the starter. Make sure it's getting a good ground. I'll wrestle it back up in there, which you're not going to be able to see anything. You'll be doing it anyways, but we'll get it back up in there and seeing if cleaning it out and giving it a little bit of oil made any difference. So there's the starter wrestled back up in there. Get the battery hooked back up and see if we made a difference. Let's see what happens. So we're back on the bench. Got this starter solenoid pulled back apart. Well, that seems to be, it's got a little slop in it, but it seems to be pulling out fully. No issues. I wonder if it's in this end here. Something's not right in here. But that's in this housing, so I'll have to slide that apart. Well, let me get this a little further apart and I'll bring you back. Well, I'm really not finding anything wrong in this. The one thing I'm assuming might be here is this one-way clutch. I worked some light oil in it from the two sides. There's a seal on there and crimped flange back here. Everything appears to be tight. It's the only thing I figure might be slipping. And there's no unusual wear on these teeth. It's kind of strange. So everything moves real good. You know, it's turning this direction. It's nice and tight on the shaft. Can't move it. I can't move it by hand anyway, separate from there, so it seems to be engaging okay. So I guess the only option I've got is to put it back together and see what happens. You know, if I don't see anything that's showing me that I have to take this apart, I have to remove this little clip and pull that apart there, but this little one-way clutch is all a crimped together piece. I guess I could see if there's a replacement one available that engages, and that gives this lever some room to push on it. So everything seems to move pretty free. I don't want to put too much oil in here. I guess you can put it back together and see what happens. So we're back on the bench tearing this starter apart again. So this is as far as I took it last time. So the only other thing I've done is this, there's this little retaining clip, there's this little retaining ring there. I just tap that down and that'll give me access to this retaining ring here. You pull those off, and that gives access to the starter drive assembly. The starter drive assembly is what I figure is the issue in the starter, because the starter is spinning. In order to spin, this has to advance to make the relay to turn the power on, make the starter spin. So I know it's advancing. So this seems okay by hand. I'm thinking under power it's got some issues. This is the starter drive here. So as this spins and is pushed into the starter, it can turn and rotate the engine, but but when the engine starts and the engine speed exceeds, and the engine, see, this will turn, and when the engine speed exceeds the speed of the starter, it'll disengage, so it's not spinning the backspinning the starter. So this is the starter drive assembly. Some people call it the Bendix. This particular detail that we're interested in is this clutch. I think probably the best name that I know to call that is the overrunning clutch. Used in a lot of starters. So it's crimped together. Looks like somebody's been inside this before. So I'm going to need to put this in the vise, open up this crimped down edge here, then open this up, and there should be some rollers and springs in there, and we can look at that and see what kind of condition those are in. So I've got the starter driver over here in my vise, my bench vise. Probably should have some soft jaws in here, but I don't have any for this vise. I'll have to get some, but so I am clamped on the drive gear. But I'll try to be gentle with this as much as I can. So I got this. So I got this cheap chisel that I've taken and blunted, so it's not sharp. I'm just going around and working this can on this flange on this sheet metal housing on this open. I'll get this open, and we'll open it up and see what the insides look like. There we go. Looks like we got some mashed up springs in here. Pins themselves don't look bad. Don't look like they got flat spots or anything. And not that I can see right off anyways. But these springs, these little springs sure aren't the healthiest. You can see these springs are mashed back. They're not even touching. They're not even touching the rollers. So I'm gonna have to source some new springs. You can see how collapsed them springs are. They're pretty smashed. So that's the source of the issue, so no amount of cleaning and greasing was going to fix that. I'm going to have to source some springs, put this back together. So it's been a couple months since you've seen me take this apart. I've been having some problems finding some parts for this starter. I'm looking for these small rectangular shaped springs. You see, these are the ones that came out of the Bendix. They're in kind of bad shape. I believe that's what was causing the problems with the Bendix not engaging reliably. These springs are about 0.2 inches wide, about 5 millimeters, 0.4 inches tall. That's about 10 millimeters tall, with a 30 thousandths thick or a 0.8 millimeter wire. I cannot find these, at least not with going and getting a custom set made by a spring supplier. I thought I had found a supplier all the way out of China. They listed this size spring on AliExpress. I ordered them, waited about 2 months. My order was canceled and my money was refunded, so much for that. So if anybody has a source for these springs for these starter Bendixes, maybe you can make a comment down in the comments there and let me know where we can find them for future projects. So I could have got a whole new starter Bendix, but I'm also having issues finding a 10 tooth of this diameter. I can find 10 too small because of smaller diameters, but not of this exact diameter. So what I'm going to end up doing is I got a new starter Bendix. You can see I've already taken this one apart. I'm going to pull the springs out of this assembly and put them in to the original assembly. See, this has a 10 tooth, but the diameter is much smaller. So I'm going to pull these springs out, clean them up, and bring it back and we'll do some assembly. It doesn't look too bad for being taken apart and put back together. Most important thing is it turns that direction and not that direction. So it appears to be functioning good. This has been apart a couple of months. Hopefully I remember how to put this starter back together. You get that idea anyway, so we put this on here and put the snap ring on. It's kind of hard to do with me keeping in the in the camera here, so I'm going to go wrestle with this and get it on there, and I'll be back. Okay, got that together. So what that allows it to do is the yoke or the fingers come in here and it pushes this Bendix overrunning clutch out into the flywheel so it can be spun by the starter. But if it comes up and it's not quite aligned, it's got some give to it. So that goes on the main armature shaft of the motor here. I've gone and cleaned up all the splines on here fairly well. I'll put a little in the shaft too, just for help corrosion. It's gonna be all encased inside of here, so this should slide onto here. That's when if you ever buy a replacement Bendix starter driver, that's another thing you need to make sure of, is not only do you need to get the right diameter and tooth count on here and the right engagement direction, you need to get the right number of drivers inside here. See, there's three. Probably can't see it, but there's 3 drivers in here that corresponds with this spiral on here. So I'm going to go ahead and install another one of these retaining rings on here. This is a smaller one, maybe I can do it by hand. Just gonna work that in there. Hey, if any of you know of a good tool that works for these retaining rings, why don't you leave it in the comments down below. Now I'll put the starter back together. I've shown that a couple of times already, so instead of boring you with a repeat, I'll get this all put back together, get it back up in the tractor, and maybe wait for a warmer day and see how it works. Okay, it's late March. Finally got this starter back in this tractor. See if we get any good with it. It's probably about, I don't know, 42, 44 degrees Fahrenheit out, so it's warm enough that I shouldn't have to put the block heater on this tractor, but we'll see how much it cranks over. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the fuel off, crank it over a couple of times, just make sure the starter is engaging the flywheel properly. It's a hopeful sign, so let's see if this old tractor will start up. It's cold, but